A few headlines to touch on from the week. And Nolan's like, wait a minute, what was my headline? And I said, Nolan, how could you forget that Dennis Muchmore is going to be leaving the governor's office?
Chief of staff. That's, you know, he's retiring. Dennis has done 5 years, but he'll have done 6 years by the time he leaves in January. He's been the governor's, I think, most able advisor, certainly one of his most trusted people, and a real solid voice for good government in his office. He's going to be missed, but you know, that happens when you're in your second term. You oftentimes lose the people who came in with you, and you lose some of your better folks. And the challenge is replacing them with people you'll listen to as much as you did those original folks who came in with you.
I mean, I think Muchmore is part of a small group of people who, when Rick Snyder was elected with no previous government experience and no experience in Lansing, really helped ground that administration in being able to get things done, being able to work the legislature, craft legislation, things like that. And I mean, he's a veteran of how many other administrations? Does he go back to Milliken? No.
I don't think he goes back that far. He started, I think he was a Democrat when Milliken was governor.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
That's right, he used to be a Democrat.
The teachers union for a while. Yeah, no, but he still has a good crew up there, and he has brought in for his second term some good people. John Walsh out of the legislature was a good hire.
Yeah.
I mean, the risk for a second termer is you start replacing the folks who'll be honest with you with yes men. It happened to Engler toward the end of his second term. The people who came in to replace his original group were never quite as talented or as forthright. And so, and I think it's happening in the Obama administration the same. The folks that are coming in to replace the folks that are leaving aren't quite as honest with him or as good. And it's just a natural phenomenon in politics.
All right, the other thing I wanted to bring up is we've been watching over the last week and a half this trial of Steve Kahn, who is the president of the Detroit Federation of Teachers. And he was elected in January, and since then, I mean, there's only been 6 months on the job, he's accumulated a number of complaints against him, everything from canceling meetings, failing to preside over them, affiliating the union with the group BAM, which is By Any Means Necessary. He was accused of failing to investigate abuse of members, failing to address a physical assault on members, and failing to pay dues that the DFT owes to the American Federation of Teachers.
And so, who saw that coming?
And, no, hang on now. So there was an actual trial through the executive board, and they found him guilty on Wednesday. They kicked him out of his position, and they kicked him out of the union.
Kicked him out of the union too, right?
I mean, which is really interesting to me.
So I mean, Steve Kahn, Steve Kahn aside, and I think he's a problematic personality and somebody who has caused a lot of trouble for the union in the past, even before he was elected president. But he does represent, I think, a very important constituency among Detroit teachers who feel as though they have been unduly blamed for the condition of the schools, that their ideas have not been listened to, that they've taken a lot of hits financially, which all of which is true. And I think if you sort of take Steve Kahn out of the picture, there's still this very real need to start dealing with that, especially in the context of this reform package that they're still talking about.
Steve Kahn was sort of the Donald Trump of the
right.
Of the teachers
That's a great
union.
analogy.
And you know, he never was quite stable as a leader, and I don't think the reform movement would have ever moved on to include the teachers in any meaningful way as long as he was president, and that remains true. They have to replace him with somebody who's willing to accept the fact that big changes are coming, reform's coming, and you want to be at the table. I mean, David Hecker from the AFT, who the parent union for the DFT, very much at the table during the coalition meetings. You need someone who not only wants to be at the table, but is appropriate to sit there. You can't come.
So do you think that Steve Kahn wasted his opportunity then? He has been an active voice for so many years, and he finally got to the head of the table. And then
no, I mean,
there's a difference
Steve Kahn
between
was never going to be anything but a bomb thrower.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the translation he couldn't make was from bomb thrower to leadership, someone in authority. They are different roles, and they require somebody to do different things. And I don't think he was ever able to really make that transition, or really was interested in making that transition. He's an activist, and there's a difference between that and leading a really diverse group of people.
Meanwhile,
last
we all
word
were
on this,
out
Nolan.
together the other night and talked to somebody and learned, I think, much to our disappointment, that this reform movement is going nowhere until deep next year.
Yeah.
Which is
And
a huge disappointment to me if
Which is
that
terrible for
indeed is
people
the
to say.
case.
that was a little surprising to hear.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think in a couple of weeks we're going to do a show right before kids go back to school, public kids go back to school, all in education. So everyone tune in for that. All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next week, and that is going to do it for My Week. Head on over to MiWeek.org right now. Nolan, Stephen, and I are going to keep the conversation going. It's more My Week after the show. So tell us what you think on Facebook and on Twitter. We are there during the week. I'm Christy McDonald. Have a great night. We will see you next time. Take care.